Yeah, that's the rest of
This is how this is going to work. Is this good?
No, it's not bulletproof.
Not bulletproof. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Oh, probably. Yeah, it's going to be up there anyways. All right, we will get started. It is 6 o'clock, and I don't normally start on time or end on time, as most of you know me. If you know me, that's the way it is. I'm Doug Kinslow, I'm the mayor, and I am excited and really impressed and happy and thrilled and all those good things that you guys are here tonight. This is probably twice as many folks as we had last time, I think, give or take. And I appreciate you coming. I hope our big marquee out there flashing gave you some heads up that we were having a meeting, or however you found out. It doesn't matter. We're just glad you're here. I'm going to go over, first of all, I want to do something that was brought to my attention a while ago. Just for kicks, just for fun, and nobody can see you except me and Tom, and people sitting beside you and on the other side and behind and in front of you. Just for kicks, I like to see a show of hands, if you don't mind, a show of hands, if you're leaning toward this traffic relief project that we're talking about, and if you don't know much about it to vote, that's okay. It's not an official vote. Nobody's counting your head. If you're like the idea, can I see your hand, just for kicks? If you have deep concerns that it's not the right thing to do or timing, can I? Okay, thank you very much. You three can leave. No, I'm just kidding. Totally joking, totally joking. That's what we want. We want everybody here, and it's not just that we're going to cram it down your throat. We want to give you the information that we have. I'm going to give you the information I have. Tom is going to give you real information. Tom's our finance director here for the city, and he's going to tell you and talk to you about what the vote is about and why we need 2 votes for, not just one, but why we need 2 votes to make this even a reality. I'm going to give you a history of how we got to where we are today, okay? So, we will begin. That's the reason we're here today. That's one of the reasons we're here today. That's a huge reason why we're here today. This was actually taking, to be honest, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm almost positive, this was actually taken during the flooding issue, correct? You can't even see how far, the picture does not tell you how far everybody's lined up. I kind of joke a little bit, but not too much. I said to a group that I was talking to in Fort Smith a while back, not about getting a vote going, but just about our issue, is that there was hardly anything that could have happened that would have shown the world, if you will, what the importance of this traffic relief is than that. We were very fortunate in this city and blessed in this city not to have any flooding issues during that horrible mess. What we did have was everybody that did have those issues, that direction having to be funneled through our city. I put a big sign up, same one that we got out there, said welcome to Greenwood. What I didn't say was please stop at McDonald's and everywhere else and spend your money. I was insinuating that, but welcome to Greenwood. I had some friends from Charleston that I used to work with about 40 years ago call me and say, I'm having to come through Greenwood. I need some special treatment. And I said, you give me the car tag number that you're driving and I'll give you some special treatment as you come. That didn't work out. They never called me back. So I was going to have them pulled over. But anyway, the point is that was, could have been a horrendous, horrible mess because, and I'll say this, that intersection, am I looking at this right? Yeah, that's Keith's, right? Yeah. That's Keith Class Motor Sales, not anymore, but it's something else. You know where we are out here. That intersection should be known worldwide. There should be national reporters down here talking and reporting to people on how kind and generous the people in this area are to let people go. Every other car. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, you go up Northwest Arkansas, that ain't happening. I'm sorry. And those are good people, but down here, it's every other car. If that hadn't been going on, they would probably still be backed up. I mean, that's months ago. So, but that just gives you a visual of what was going on. I can tell you that's not that far off of what's going on every single morning around 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock during those times, and then again in the afternoon. And yes, it is due to school traffic. We understand that, or that is a big part of it. I blame John Cecil all the time. He just turns and walks away. No, not really. Superintendent of schools. We understand that. In my opinion, as much as that is important, you know, it's an inconvenience. Nobody likes to sit in traffic. What would be more inconvenient is if there was an accident in all that mess. And we, Greenwood, or even Fort Smith, could not get emergency services through Greenwood to you. That would be bad. That could be very bad. My son had a wreck out here between these two bridges several years ago. He was fine, went to the hospital. It was a bottleneck. It lasted an hour or so. If he'd have been, that could have been bad, really bad. So I get that. It's a 60-mile around the world to get to that side of town if we can't get somebody through 10 Spur as it is now. If you lost a bridge, same scenario. So it's a traffic relief, it's a safety issue relief, it's all kinds of things. And it's also, we're going to talk about economic development when we get out to the 10, the widening. And I was corrected. I don't remember, was somebody just a minute ago? Yeah, where are you? Somebody said to me, widening of 10 is not the right term. Where are you?
Right here.
There you are. Thank you. And I said, I never thought about it. Widening of 10, a lot of people may be looking at they're just going to widen the lanes that are there. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about making 10, the existing 10 from Pink Bud Nursing Home all the way to 71 into 4 lanes or 5 lanes. Either 5 lanes or 4 lanes in a median. So it's a true building another highway. Okay, so over the last 30 years, I think easily, this has been an issue as Greenwood grows. I've lived here all my life, and it's been an issue for 30 years plus. Every mayor that has been in office has done their best and has worked and tried to figure out a way to fix it. Most mayors that I'm aware of and that I know personally have taken a plan to RDOT and said, this is what we believe will be the best scenario. There's been all kinds of different versions of what we're looking at today. I won't go into the details because I didn't come up with them, and I don't pretend to know exactly what they wanted done other than maybe 1 or 2. But all of them are still at RDOT. They still have those plans. I mean, some of the folks that are here or not here tonight that went with me, I know Councilman McDaniel went to see Mr. Scott Bennett, who's the director at RDOT. When I went 5 years ago-ish now, with our plan, he told us one of the problems that Greenwood has is you've got all these plans and nobody can decide on the same plan, and they just keep piling up. And by the way, none of them, I'm not mincing word, none of them are feasible. That's coming from the director of RDOT. Granted, he was not the director when some of those were presented, but he is now. So we take him a plan that looked like this, like that, and this is after talking to Dr. Burgess, who's the principal property owner. He owns from here all the way over to Pink Bud. There's a tiny piece that Sean Land owns, a businessman here in town. City of Greenwood owns a little bit water sewer treatment plant, and the rest of that's Dr. Burgess's until you get to Roger Corbin's property at Pink Bud. So we take that to him. We take that down to RDOT with us and present it, and he's looking at it. And of course, Mr. Bennett is not one of those, this is great, we'll do this for you, and we'll see you later, we'll get this built. That's not how that works. While I was there, again about 5 years ago, I asked Mr. Bennett, because I had been the parks director for almost 10 years, I've been with the city for that long, and I had heard all sorts of things, what's going to make this happen? What is the magic words? What's the magic number that we can actually feasibly have a new road built? And he said there's 3 key components. 3. One is money. And if he said money once, he probably said it 5 times as if that was more components. So it's the same component, is money. How much money is a little bit later. Number 2 is that you have agreements already in place with property owners, or at least they're willing to sell and or trade or whatever the case may be of these easements and right-of-ways. 3, another huge component is you are willing to, if there's a highway running through your city, which there is, you all know it, you're on it every day, all the way through, that you give, that we, RDOT, the highway department, can give that up, take it off of our list of maintenance, and turn it over to you as a municipality to become a city street. We don't have to maintain it ever again. It's on you. Well, at first blush, I'm like, well, that's as huge as the money or anything else, because I don't know what the maintenance is going to be on 3 miles of highway. We know we have 60 miles of streets, 62, and so that was kind of daunting to say the least. So I looked at Mr. Bennett, not knowing him very well, and I said, would you be kind enough to overlay that for me before you give it to me? And he looked back at me, pretty serious if you know him. We have no intention and we are not in the habit of turning over highway to municipality or county without being up to standards for RDOT. We don't do that. So I have investigated that statement, and there are other cities that testify that not always it is a complete overlay when you get it turned over to you, but they actually do and have to bring it up to standards. And that's including the bridges, 5 bridges that are on and through town now. So that's good news. Typically maintenance, they say an overlay on a highway, stretch of highway is every 8 to 10 years. That's also pretty good news. The better news is if we take at a minimum of half the traffic off of what would now be ours to maintain forever and a day, that number should go, in my book, and I'm not a mathematician or anything else, that should double. I mean, I'll have to mess with it for a long, long time. So that's good. So those are the 3 components. My next question to him was, I need to know, if you can tell me, sir, what is the magic number of money that makes this happen? Well, he's not wouldn't liberty to just say it's X amount of dollars. He said if you have 50% of the total cost of this project, whatever that may be, you're going to get moved up. Well, we found out this is not all in the same meeting, but we found out pretty quick when RDOT came back to us with a map similar to this one, except their stamp on it, and I got all giddy because I thought, well, they at least spent $50 on the map that has their stamp on it, so we're moving in the right direction. It was $26 million, 26.2, I think, 4.5, 5 years ago. Well, we don't have $13 million. We probably will never have $13 million laying around. Our city sales and use tax that we have out there now, it's a 3/4% sales tax, fire shares, street shares, and park shares. Those 3 departments, $300,000 a year each. That's what that produces. So it's going to take a long time for this man. This is Dennis Goodwin, our street director. It's going to take a long time for him to get $13 million at $300,000 a year. So that was not good news. But the more we talked over the months and then turned into years, a couple of years, we went back talking to Tom. I'm going to tell you, man, I went into his office one day and I said, I need X amount, I need $5 million, I think, and I need it without raising any taxes. And he just, okay, we're going to work. So that's what we're doing, not to raise taxes or to have a new tax. And the reason we went $5 million, I'm skipping ahead now. This is now $33 million. 4 years later, it's $33 million. That was 8 months ago, 6 months ago. It's probably more like $34 million. The longer you wait, as with anything, the more expensive it gets. Things like building roads are not getting cheap. So it seems like the right time to go after this, to get it done. More importantly, to get all of our ducks in a row and present it to the citizens to let you decide, because that's where it comes from. That's, you know, I'm going to feel sad, I suppose, if it doesn't pass and we don't get it done. But I will feel, hopefully I'll feel we did the best we could to make a presentation, to get the numbers together, to advise the citizens how it works, what it's going to cost us, and then let you decide as voters. And that's the fair way to do it. So, here we are. I think I'm to this point. So this is, there you go, he's pointing for me. That is out at what I call Keith Placid. It's not anymore, but you know what a car lot is. We do not have, let me tell you this real quick, we do not have details on what any of these intersections will look like. We will not have those until the design phase is complete. I will tell you that this is referred to as a hot project, and that's not from me, that's from RDOT, meaning they are working on this. And if you haven't noticed, there's surveyors all over the place. And sometimes they end up in places like, what does that got to do with that traffic relief? Dr. Burgess himself was concerned because they were in front of his home, which is about a quarter mile away from one of these intersections. Well, they're doing reference points. I mean, you all that are real estate and all those people, you know that you can't just survey the road, you got to go around. So they're out there surveying. So there's the beginning of it. Don't know what that intersection is going to look like. It was actually joked with me with the deputy director. She said, what do you think you want out there? And I said, we're assuming there's going to be a light. And she goes, yeah, or a roundabout. And I said, what? And she said, I'm just kidding. So there's where to begin. It'll go across, can't remember the word, Sean Lynn's property, where you're way ahead of me, Tom. Sean Lynn's got a little bitty piece right here, which he's pretty excited about, I think, and about getting something done. He always makes some money selling that, I don't know. And then the other piece right there, before you get to the creek, belongs to the city of Greenwood, which I'm still dealing with those guys. Those are tough to get property from, but we're working on that. That was a joke. And then you see the red, there's a bridge. It becomes Dr. Burgess's property all the way over to Pink Bud. There's another bridge. There's another bridge. And you get down and it very narrowly misses Pink Bud. I want to talk about that for just a second. It misses Pink Bud. This is not a conceptual, but it is a here's where it ought to go. As far as we know, the design's not complete. What angle that comes in, I can't tell you yet until we know. And when we know, you will know. The question came up at our last meeting. It was a very good question. Will we know before the vote? Not likely. What I've been told, once the citizens of Greenwood, if they were to approve this, and RDOT is finished, well, obviously there'll be no need in looking at it if they don't approve it. But if they approve the vote on this, 2 votes, they will come back with that design, specific design, and then let the city of Greenwood say, well, that just doesn't work. And we're not going to take off a corner of Pink Bud. We're not going to, we don't want that house. Now, they're RDOT, and if you're not familiar with the highway department, they can and will do what they want to do. And that's not on us, that's just how they play. That's not a negative tone, by the way, with RDOT, because we love RDOT, right? So, I don't have specific answers. I know that Pink Bud is near and dear to this community. I've been here all my life again. I have in-laws that stayed out there. I still go out there once a month and see some folks and do some haircutting. Nobody wants to disrupt those folks' lives. So we're hoping that everything works out, that they will be missed and not on top of them, okay? I don't have a specific exactly. Same thing on the other end. Let me go back to the Main Street area. That is Main Street, come down, crosses by the square, and it dead ends basically over by the Masonic Lodge, if you're familiar. Dr. Burgess's request, he only had a couple of requests as we're bargaining with him on his easement and right of way, is that we build that road. And that gives another access right downtown to this traffic relief. I call it traffic relief because I don't like the word bypass, and it sends a negative out there, and it's not a true bypass that goes 100 miles around. It's just a traffic relief. We're literally hundreds of yards from downtown. So that is a city street, will be a city street to connect to the new traffic relief, and RDOT has already given their approval on that. Don't know exactly, I mean, I know where it'll be. Again, it comes within feet of the Masonic Lodge, and that will be something we will be talking to those folks about once this becomes a reality. But that just gives you another funnel. We get down to where it connects to 10. Don't know what that's going to look like. Don't think it's going to be a roundabout. Pretty sure it'll have to be a traffic light. Nobody gets too pumped up about a traffic light, but that's what they're there for. And then the adding on 2 new lanes, I'm trying to rephrase that, widening all the way from that point all the way to 71. Don't know what that looks like. Telling Tom, we were talking earlier, does that mean it's all on the north side of 10 now and they'll add 2.5 lanes, or will they do it on the south side, or will they mix it? I'm not an architect or an engineer by any means. I would assume, they have told me this, that they take the path of least resistance. If there's a dozen homes over here, there's none over here, it only makes sense to go over here, you know, compared to 2 homes to 10. I don't know those answers yet. I had a lady come to my office asking what to do about her home. She lives right on the road, or I say on the road, it's right near the Free Will Baptist Church, and she's talking about remodeling, and I said, ma'am, if I were you, I would kind of wait, if you can, and see what's going to happen. And she was okay with that. She was actually kind of, she was kind of like, I'm not sure I wouldn't be fine if they came in and bought me out so I can go buy a smaller home. And there will probably be people like that, and then there will probably be folks that they've lived there all their life, and it's going to be traumatic, and I get that too. So But I don't know, I don't have those answers. I'm not saying I won't entertain a question regarding it, but I don't have any specific answers for you. I'm trying to be a little quicker than I was last time. I know I ran along the last time. I will take some questions if you have for me, and that's where we are. That is the design, if you will, as it stands now without a true design. This is what we're putting on the ballot, and he'll explain how to pay for, how we're planning on that being paid for. Absolutely.
On this one,
Yeah.
this road, initially we thought it was a two-lane road.
Yeah.
RDOT came back to us and said, we don't build for the present, we build for the future. Okay, that's a quote from RDOT.
Right.
The other thing that they told, that I want you to realize is that this is not a city road. This will be a state highway, a state road that will be designated a truck route. So all those oversized loads that come up this road and make this turn and get caught and knock down the fence and go around everything individually, they're going to be pulled away from the city and not have to go through it. They'll have a much safer and a much better route to go up 96 and down to Boonville and or up Gillette. And the other thing is that we are obligated, once they build this road, to take back from the state an amount of road equal to what they build or widen. So the plan initially is when this road is constructed, we would take over this road all the way up to here. So this would be ours immediately once this is built. And then after they do all the widening, we then are responsible from this point forward and all the way out to 71. Now the interesting thing about that is right now people want to see sidewalks. They want to see us do some work on those roads. We can't do that. That's a state highway. The state has to do that. We would love to go out there and put all those sidewalks in, but we're having to go after state grants, federal grants, and work with RDOT and cooperate with them in order to try to do things that the citizens are asking for and demanding of. This becomes our road now. We maintain that, and we can upgrade that. So that's in our plans. That's something that we're looking at, and I've asked all the department directors to do on their plans, is to don't do just-in-time capital programs, capital expenditures. I want a 3- and 5-year and 10-year plan. I want a master street plan. I want to know what he's got in the works that need to be overlaid and done in the next 3 years, the next 5 years, and all that's being taken into consideration now, along with constructing this road right here, because that's a city street.
Good point, Tom. I appreciate that. I tend not to try to correct Tom because he's way smarter than I am. We will be adding and building new sidewalks on Highway 10 spur. I mean, this is out of the ordinary. RDOT themselves have granted us funds, it's 80-20, I believe, to build sidewalk on 10 spur, and this is to take, it's not specifically to take care of, but it is specifically to take care of those folks that we've all barely missed on Highway 10 coming into town where Taco Bell and all that is. We actually have permission, which is very unusual. We think we've got a pretty good relationship with RDOT, which is
Essential.
yeah, it's very essential. So we are in the planning stages. In fact, it's already, we've been approved for this grant. It's a done deal, and it's a $250,000 grant. Okay, so give or take. And so really, to be honest, we all thought we'd already have a few sections of these sidewalks in, but it takes a while. It takes a year to even get the process started. So. But it was a big deal to get it done, and that's not normal. But as Tom's point is, as soon as we take over, that's no longer an issue on any of that. We build sidewalks where we want to. It's just, if we wanted to, shut down around the square, the whole thing for Freedom Fest, we can do that if we wanted to.
Because you will have an alternate route.
Yeah, exactly. So, is there some negatives? Sure, there always is with anything, but there's a whole lot of positives. I have one more thought before I open that question. I can't remember what it was. Oh, the economic development. So, when I was in RDOT talking to not the director, but the deputy director, I thought I had the seller on this thing. So they've already printed it for us. They've already told us it's the right path, and here I'm still trying to sell it. And I'm getting all excited about the dotted line. The dotted line represents, again, new construction. The red solid is the adding of lanes. I'm trying to do better, Roger, of widening that out there. But the new construction, just think, you know, Casey's, even though they're out here, you know, if you go anywhere around, Casey's builds 3 blocks from the next Casey's for some reason, I don't know. And I said, that could happen out here on this property right here and something else. And she's just looking at me with this, almost a blank. And I said, you know what? She goes, no, why are you doing this? Why are you even doing this highway? Oh, I said, oh, well, we need to get all this traffic out. She goes, okay, then you don't start putting Casey's and McDonald's and everything else on it because they're going to stop, and you've done the same thing over here as you have over here. I said, you're exactly right. I was just teasing you. She said, when you get here, all the way to 71 on the existing 10, absolutely. There's your future economic development. Which brings up, and I'm assuming somebody's thinking this, and that's not going to happen overnight. I mean, we don't have water and sewer out there, as some of you probably already know. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of money. Somebody's going to say, okay, great. Then build a new McDonald's out there, a new Casey's. What about the one that's over here? We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know everything, obviously. I wouldn't never run for office if I knew that much. That was also a joke. I believe in my heart, truly, and this is not a Doug Kimberlow traffic relief, by the way. This is something that everybody's been working on for a long time, and it just happens to be the route that the RDOT goes, now you got something, let's do this. In my opinion, everybody that's in a hurry to get through Greenwood, Arkansas in the morning and the evenings and the afternoons and all that, and you keep seeing that building up. It used to be just in front of McDonald's, in front of Casey's. Now it's all the way past Storecraft building and all the way up almost to 71, 5 o'clock. Well, that's not school traffic anymore. Those people in the morning, I don't think they're doing a whole lot of shopping in Greenwood, to be honest with you anyway. They're in a hurry to get out of here and get through and get to their work enforcement, and we can appreciate that. So I don't think we're going to lose a lot in the mornings by those shoppers. I don't think our local businesses are. Keith Jesse, for instance, who has a station right over there, is very, he's like, hey, if they want to come in here, they'll stop, and if they don't, they don't. You know, that's just kind of his, but he has a great business, and he's not worried about it. There could be others that are, but we believe that getting them on out of here, in my opinion, when they're coming home to go to Boonville, I just assume they not take this. To be honest with you, I assume they come right on through town at 5, and we might still have a little congestion, but it will not be anything like it is now because you're taking every single large truck. A large truck will no longer be able to come through town unless they're delivering local. This is going to be a truck route. We don't call it that much. That's all that traffic will be there. So I think people, and somebody said to me earlier, ask them if you're in the mood, you might be hungry for a breakfast burrito at McDonald's in the morning, but do you dare turn left and get in there at 7 o'clock, knowing you got to get back out and go to Fort Smith? It's difficult. So I think it's going to ease it up for everybody down here to feel more comfortable about doing some shopping. Now that's just me, and that's other people too. So with all that, I'm going to ask you if you got any questions of me. You can ask even after Tom starts talking, and we may join together and answer whatever. I do want to mention that Bob Purvis is here from the Chamber. He's a director of the Chamber. We have, and I'm going to let you talk a little bit about, in fact, right before you talk, I'm going to let you discuss the committee that has been formed in case anybody's interested in that. I know Ms. Fairchild and her husband with the pink jacket. I got to have that jacket, man. Are here, and Buddy Lloyd. There's a lot of people. Thank you all for being here, for sure. Larry is going to teach us something tonight, I'm sure. And there's councilmen here, A.C. Brown and his wife Kimberly, fire chief's here. We have commissioners here, Parks Commissioner Joel, Charlotte Dairies back there, our city clerk treasurer, Danny McDaniel. I think Lance Terry snuck in, didn't think I saw him. And Danielle, my assistant. Good morning, Lance. Yeah, Lance Terry, everybody. Give it up for him. He loves that. What questions can I ask or concerns can I talk about to you if I can? If you got, and again, if you are not sold on this, that's okay. I get that. This is a big deal. This is a tax extension, as he will describe in a minute, and it's a big deal for Greenwood. And if you don't feel like, if you think it's good, and you got to come in. If you don't think it's good, yes, sir.
Okay, I appreciate what you guys are doing. First of all, I mean, looking at it, nobody can foretell what's happening and how it's going. I do have a couple of questions. Down there by 96, the spur, the intersection there, whenever traffic is backed up there, and like you said, right now, they go 1, 1, 1, 1, and they go. Jokingly, that can't be a roundabout, or you'll have the cops there all the time with wrecks.
The new roundabout is like the old,
Yeah.
the loop. You just gotta get a lot of speed.
I've been all over the world, and trust me, Europe does it, but we can't. But if you want a stoplight there, you're still going to back them up a lot. It's going to be a lot. And then, but if you want an overpass, that's a lot more money. If you went over the highway and RDOT, because I know this because I've had to deal with these people on the Oklahoma side, they could go an overpass over that, right over the top of it, okay, and right there, and then that would still leave an intersection or somebody turning left on that, on 90, off of 90, or off of 10, onto the new bypass.
To the new road.
Okay, so that could be a little iffy there. Then the flooding on Sadler's property, we're gonna be building that road up, correct?
Burgess property?
Yeah, Burgess, yeah. Is he gonna have access in through that to where he's at there in the middle? Because there's a road that he goes in down at the middle.
Yes, he does.
And he's gonna get
Another
access.
request that I did not mention, he has access to his
Okay,
property.
that's why I was wondering, because
Yes,
that closed his property
Yes,
off
sir.
right
No.
there. And I knew probably something was said about
Absolutely.
that. Okay, and then the bridges, the maintenance on the bridges and stuff, will that fall to us once they give that? It'll
Oh,
be
the 10 spur, the existing?
Yeah, the existing.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Five
because we're
bridges.
going all of that, okay.
Yep.
Now, my last question, or last.
Which, by the way, we maintain already to
Yeah.
a degree.
To a degree,
They
I've seen
inspect
this
and
out
then
there.
we, yeah.
Down by Pink Bud,
Yes, sir.
from Pink Bud on. Now, we can see what they did on Phoenix and other state highways where they come in. They split that road and they took those people's land. And if Pink Bud's that close, and then you go to highway department on one side and those apartments, which are barely, you can park the rear end of your car on the road, they're gone. They're gone. So we're purchasing property and houses. And I know y'all can't vote on it. We don't know if that's gonna happen yet or not. But it could. And are we gonna alert property owners that they might not get what, I mean, because if you pop a for sale sign up in Greenwood, you pay a lot of money for property here. But when RDOT comes in and buys it,
Market
they don't
value.
pay a lot of money.
Market value.
Yeah.
I've been told that already. I have, again, and I appreciate your thought, I'm sorry to,
No, you're fine. That's
Good.
all I can.
I don't have any of the answers that you just brought up, as I mentioned before, but I do know that when we say, and I don't use, correct me if I'm wrong, when we say that it's gonna, those apartments will have to go, I absolutely don't know
I
that.
don't
If
know
you go
either.
look, there's literally, if you stepped it off, and I have, the house that's on the opposite corner, which is a rent house belonging to Miss Barbara Stewart, if it all went over there, there's room for it to go.
But they would take the highway department.
Yes, sir. And they know,
They're not gonna do that.
well, one engineer has already said they will absolutely do that. Now, that's just people telling me without an official,
But then you're getting the Methodist church. I mean, you're still buying a ton of property. The Nazarene church is still.
we're not.
We're not.
We're not. Our
We're not
dot.
buying
That's all on our
Well,
dot.
what I'm saying is they're buying it.
Sure.
And that
Oh,
comes
this
into
will
the
affect,
tax.
this absolutely will affect homes and that business.
Just so you know, they can do this widening if they wanted to right now without us.
Yeah.
That widening, that's their road right now.
I know they can.
So-
They come to our shop and told us not to fix nothing there. They would block us in. I mean, they're not very nice.
No.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Well,
we're
I-
bragging on them, but I mean, they told me, you want something fixed, I'll block you in. And then what do you want? And I'm like, just leave me alone.
No, you are
I'm not
absolutely right
raving,
with
but the
you.
government comes knocking, I'm like, I don't want to talk to
Yeah.
you.
Unfortunately,
This vote has nothing to do with whether RDOT can widen this road or not. They'll do that regardless of whether you vote for this.
They're not going to do it
No.
right now, though. They're not going to touch it.
You got one thing that's looming that you gotta consider, and that is 96 is
There's-
coming down.
yeah, there's a bigger picture.
96 is coming down through between 71 and Hackett. They're gonna put a big interchange there, and that's gonna be where the trucks are gonna drop off to go out to Boonville. So they are already building for the future. This is why it's so hot, is they need this built.
I would like to believe
49, not
that,
96, 49.
49, yes.
I'm a little full of myself a lot of times, those of you that know me. I would love to believe that only my visits to Mr. Bennett and then his executive, or his deputy director, and phone calls and all that is what's got all this going. And certainly, I think it's prompted a lot of it, but I don't think for a second that RDOT would be putting this much into this, because they don't know if we're gonna pass a bond issue to pay for our part.
Right.
They're either gonna do it anyway, and I don't mean to say that, so we don't need to vote, and we don't need to raise money, but they're gonna do something. And they're already met, and as Tom alluded to, this, whether it's this route or a route they decide, the good news is, again, you don't have to take my word for it, but the good news is we have a choice, or we've presented what we believe is a good plan to be less, there's a plan at RDOT to widen 10 spur to 5 lanes all the way through the heart of Greenwood. Now, some people would say, well, that's the right thing to do. Well, I don't like it. And it's not just because I didn't like it. They also said 5 years ago, 4 phases at $50, $60 million per phase, and shut down downtown Greenwood for at least 3 to 4 years.
Has anybody read the projections about the population of Greenwood in the year 2030?
Year 2040, we are projected to be 25,000.
Yeah, I mean, we
So-
can't just sit here. We
Yeah,
gotta do something.
I understand absolutely. There are people this will affect.
Well, I'm not asking us to sit here, sir. I'm saying before we vote, will property owners, that, I appreciate what you guys are doing. I do. If I was you, I would be doing the same thing. But I'm saying, will property owners be alerted before they cast a ballot that they could be forced to sell?
That's what we're trying to do.
Okay.
That's what these
That's
meetings
what I
are
wanted
for. And by the way, we're having 4 meetings, counting tomorrow to focus on Greenwood. We're having one more like this. We've had one already. And even though we're just now having the meetings, this has been in the public's eye. This was issued in the paper 3 years ago. So hopefully people are starting to get it, that it's a possibility, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, yes, and everybody that this will affect eventually. I don't know, before we vote, the city's doing the best we can to notify. Is RDOT going home to home? I don't think so. As far as I know, they're not. Now, they may be, when they put a stake in, I go out to 10 every day to see, because I know it's coming, where are the new flags going to be for a 4-lane with a medium, and whose house is that? I know that on Phoenix Avenue you can step out off the porch on some of those homes and you're on Phoenix. So I don't have those answers as I stated before, but the idea is that we're doing the best we can to notify folks.
When is this vote?
December the 10th.
This coming December?
Yes.
So you've mentioned that you have a lot of unknown variables. You don't really have the drawing.
We don't have the design.
Don't really have the design. Don't really know what properties it's going to affect. We don't really know how many homeowners or businesses that it's going to affect.
We know new construction. 10, we don't. New construction, we do.
So, but you want people to vote on something December 10th that we still have a lot of unknowns. That sounds like the Obama thing. Vote yes before we know. That concerns me a little bit. And I know we haven't touched on it yet, and I think he's going to. The concern I have, we don't align on this, that you're
You
gonna, yeah, that you're gonna take the tax that we voted on for the police department. You're gonna pay off their building, I get that. This tax was like a 20-year tax, right? Am I right? I'm talking to you.
I thought it was like a 30-year tax.
30-year tax, even better. So the tax that you did have for the police department, you're gonna pay off their building, but that tax wasn't just for the loan of the building. I guess I thought that.
Yes,
It was
So how does the police department maintain their bricks and
They
mortar?
don't.
They don't with that. And it comes back to the city. We'll cover that in just
But
a
the
minute.
police department's already in the hole.
I know that. Nobody knows that better than me.
But I don't know that everybody else knows.
It's public.
That's not relevant to
That's not real,
our
yeah.
other plans that we have in
Oh.
order, because they're part of general fund. They don't have any money. It's all general fund that pays the police department. So
So-
what we're looking at, we have plans in the works to ease some of the funding. We met with the police department before we even brought this out to be something that we wanted to do, so that they were on board with it.
Okay, but so my question is, this new tax, not new tax, this new
Extension.
extension that's no longer going to be for police, that is now going to be for the highway department, but it's not the 1/3 that they were already getting from the 3/4 cent sale, correct? Didn't you
No, that's a
say?
separate tax completely.
No, I know, so but that's what I'm saying, the highway department already gets 1/3 of
No,
the
you're
1/3.
talking about the street department.
Street, I'm sorry.
Street
Which-
department gets 1/3 of the 3/4 cent sales tax that's in place now.
And so this will just be strictly bypass money, or will it go to street?
No,
So,
it's to build the traffic.
okay, so, but this will be 30 years as well?
We're gonna cover that in just a
We're
minute.
gonna cover that.
I want him to answer those questions. They're good questions, but I'll answer anything that's more physical in here and then he will.
My other question was, how do you know that the bypass is going to take half of the traffic away? Because you said if this takes half
I
of the
said,
traffic
if-
away.
I did, I said, if it takes, I can tell you, I've counted trucks. I don't know that it's gonna, if there's 500 cars that goes by between Monday and Friday, well, 3 to 5, that it's gonna take 250. I don't know half. I know it's going to, we are going to make sure and restrict all semi-trailer truck traffic to go on the new road.
Okay, and then one other question for,
And the other, I'm
Okay.
assuming the people that are in a hurry to get to Fort Smith will now take this route. We're only diverting them 1 mile south. So
Okay.
if they're in a hurry and they want to get through Greenwood, they're going to go around.
so
I don't know that for a fact.
how much due diligence was done for the business owners that are on this road? You were talking about McDonald's as an example. I mean, some of these businesses are open in the morning because they are counting on morning business traffic, i.e. gas or breakfast or whatever. How much involvement have you had with the
We've
local
had
business owners?
conversations, I'm not sure, we've had conversations with them. I don't know more than that. I mean, we've asked them, what do you think? And a lot of these business owners are managed, I mean, they don't know either. We don't know what to say exactly to them. We can't give them exact numbers, and you'll never know. All I can do on that, Ms. Brown, is give you examples of communities that have done what we're talking about, and Poto being one of them. Poto has done similar to what we're doing, not a 20 miles around bypass. Is there a business in downtown Poto that would say it killed me? Probably. But most of them, due diligence through their mayor and their committee and their commissions over there, they're fine. They have survived, and in fact, they've done well. Excuse me. Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever gone down 10 Spur during the summer when school's not in? It flows like nobody's business. So how is this going to alleviate the moms dropping kids off in the mornings when the traffic is backed up?
Not necessarily going to unless the people that, here's a good point made. I would have loved to tell you that this thing was starting back here on the other side of the schools. We don't have that option. It's not an option. We don't know, there's no property to be obtained. It would cost, if this is 30 million, if we went down a mile, it's going to be 60 or, I don't know what it would be. So it will not fix every issue. But the less traffic, once they get to this point, and I believe you brought up a good point, there's still going to be some congestion here. Nobody's saying, please do not go away thinking that I'm telling you that this is the fix-all of everything and you'll never have to sit at a light, because you will. There's not a light there now, and you don't have to sit at it. But what you sit at is uncontrolled traffic, meaning as long as we're real nice people, you can get through here pretty good.
But that's usually not where the congestion is. The congestion is at Mount Harmony Light and on the square at the light.
Exactly. But
Is
they
there-
all feed each other. They all feed. If I came to you and said, this is my plan and I'm the only one that wants this and RDOT has nothing to do with it, they don't agree with it, I would be questioning myself majorly. But the highway, the first thing RDOT does when anybody comes to them with any idea like this, whether it be harebrained or not, is a traffic study. promise you, RDOT is not willing to put, at this moment, $25 million, and it'll be a lot more than that by the time they get it built, into a project that's not going to help. They've done their homework. We talk about due diligence. I wouldn't know how to even look at that and tell you what would happen. But they have. And they didn't start here. They went on the other side of the schools and said, we're going to study this for a year, actually almost 2 years. We're going to study this, and then we'll get back with you. Well, the first thing they came back, and it was kind of an interesting conversation. They said, you're good to go. You have some issues, and yes, it's school related, and yes, it's emergency service related. I'll tell you this was an odd thing to say, but I got it. The lady that told us this said if you'd have had more fatalities, you'd have been moved up even quicker. Well, thank goodness we don't. And I don't want to move up because of that. So you're right. I mean, it's not necessarily going to fix this, but once you get to this point, you have to remember that once you get there, instead of being bogged down the rest of the way through, you now have an opportunity to be dispersed whichever direction you want to go. So that alleviates it when you get there, which in my mind alleviates it farther back because it's moving quicker. I don't know if that makes sense.
Not if you put another light in there.
We don't know that. You have no light. You're sitting there with no direction. Nobody is deciding to go. And if you don't put a light, I promise you this wouldn't change anything. I'll say it aloud. I said it last time too. I had a few people telling me to turn out all the lights through town. I think they've lost their mind. But that's just my opinion. Lights are there for a reason. Highway department, who controls traffic, who knows about controlling traffic, puts up, they don't have to put a light. Usually the city's in on the decision. So it's a matter, it's not as plain black and white as it may seem, because I've asked these same questions. If we stick a light here and we stick another light over here where there's not one, well then we just bog everybody down. And they ask me, are you an engineer? Have you designed highways for, and I'm not saying this to you, but I said no. I said, well then let us do our study, let us show you what it could be, and then see. It's not going to fix everything, for sure. Yes, sir.
Just a couple questions.
Yep.
We need a bypass. We have for years, and to me, this is the most sensible of about half a dozen I've seen over the last 17 years. But, irregardless of this meeting, or irregardless of the next meeting, we're having an election in 3 weeks, correct?
December the 10th.
I have to agree with that. It appears that we're ahead of ourselves a little bit. I think it's dangerous having a special election. Because the last special election, there were 400 people voting.
Dangerous?
Okay.
Okay.
I know you probably think it's different than that. I think it's being viewed as it's an automatic pass, but the last election.
Not at all.
The last election was 400 people. If somebody, which would not be me because I'm for it, opposed it, they could defeat it easily with 400 people voting. We don't know how much it's going to cost. I've heard that the state has guaranteed that if we sign up,
we will be locked in.
Our rate won't go up.
That's correct.
But
If they're telling us $33 million and we get our bond taken care of and our portion is 5, it doesn't matter if the cost is 60.
I think the concern, a lot of people, Kimberly brought up, that we got people whose homes are being affected that are voting on something they just don't have answers for and they're voting on them. And I think that's the big thing. And to me, it would have been better to have all the facts on the table so everybody could be educated and we said, well, we're having town hall meetings. But town hall meetings aren't answering facts because you don't know, no disrespect, but there's answers you don't know. I mean, none of us know.
Absolutely.
And then Tom told me today, well, it's not a new tax. It is a new tax because this tax is projected to pay off in 9 years. And, which is early, correct?
I'll explain all that.
And,
We'll get to the fund.
and then he said, based on the current projection, then this would pay off in 20 years, which that's good. But it is new tax because at the point at 9 years when this would have paid off, there's a new tax. But I think it's well worth it because we need traffic relief. But, thanks for taking some time with me today, but there was something you said today, and I may have misunderstood it, that I left concerned about. He said, the increased tax revenue, the project, you know, the tax revenue is more than projection. But that's not going to pay that bond off. You guys are putting that in a bank account, is that right? That, I didn't understand why.
I understand.
Again, let's get through.
You told me you used the word escrow, you're putting it in an escrow.
The bond agent that we use escrows all of our payments. We pay more than what the principal payments are made. Usually you do an annual or a semi-annual basis. So the escrow, we pay monthly to the escrow based on that check that comes from that restricted monies from the city sales and use tax will go directly to the bond agent, whatever bank that is, Simmons, Ozark, whatever.
So
they will put it into an escrow account and they will hold that money. They will invest it, so it will generate some earnings to us as well as income. But the point is that we still pay monthly the principal and interest payment that we're obligated to pay, which is the total amount of whatever the city sales and use tax is. It goes right into their account. They still make the principal payments as demanded by the bondholders, by the actual bond. So at a point in time, when it gets to the point where there's enough in the escrow to pay off from the back end, that's what they'll do. So right now, we have enough escrowed in the account that the bond could be paid off in 2029, not 2039, which is when everyone in this room that voted last time said, we're okay with that. We're okay with it maturing 2039. No one in this room until today knew, except for what I mentioned to some people, that we've had a continued growth of about 3.5% over the last 5 years since the bond was initiated in 2013. We've had that 3.5% growth that's actually fueled an amount of money that could pay off from the back end. It's like making an additional principal payment. So we're accelerating the payoff. We thought this whole thing out. So we know that a continued city sales and use tax growth on whatever's presented to you in a few minutes is going to actually be accelerated as long as we grow. As long as we grow the city and grow the city sales and use tax. Now I can tell you right now, if the next 5 years we tank and nothing grows and the city sales and use tax dive bombs, we're pushing that back out to 2039, the original maturity date. Because nothing's going to change in that respect. So it's a game that you play with, you know, are we growing the city or are we not growing the city? What steps are you doing to add economic value to with the dollars that we spend? And we do have that plan. What's going to happen if we don't do it? Are we going to be able to access enough area in order to have economic growth? Or does this right here provide us the ability to grow this city and to provide amenities to the city's citizens without an undue burden on them? City sales and use tax is not borne by only the citizens of Greenwood. It's borne by anybody that comes into this city and buys. So if we can attract Hackett people, Mansfield people, Boonville people, they're paying for our bypass. They're paying for our traffic relief. See, but we don't have to use that. We literally could go and not go to a vote, and we could go to use our franchise taxes that we have right now, and we could do the bond right now with franchise taxes with no vote. But that's not a very wise plan to do because it puts an undue burden on the general fund. And we've looked at all of the approaches. That's like when he said, I want to do it without an undue burden and a no tax increase. That's what we're saying. Theoretically, it's not a new tax because those two bond issues are mutually exclusive, not exclusive. You have to do both. If I would say it's a new tax, if we could go and you could say, well, let's just vote for paying off the bond. If we just vote to pay off the bond early for the police department, we wouldn't be able to do the road. So yes, then if we later decide to do the road, it's a new tax. But you're voting for both together. You're saying we want to pay the bond off because we want to repurpose the bond repurpose the sales tax for the purpose of supplying money enough to fund this traffic relief program. So you're going to repurpose it and extend it And you're gonna, hopefully, we're gonna get growth out of it, so there's some economic value that's being added by the dollar we spend. And I'm gonna go over all of that, and you're gonna see that you're probably gonna, if you were to go to your original maturity date of 2039, you will pay this bond off at our current growth of city sales and use tax in 2038, which is actually 1 year before you actually agreed for the other bond to go to. So you're not really extending it. We're just going to hope that if we continue to grow the city, economically develop the city sales and use tax goes up, continues to grow, we still pay off from the back end more and more and more. So to say it's a 35-year bond is kind of ridiculous with our current population growth and the growth rate, what we know as potential for annexation, for the context that we have for people that are looking and interested in coming to Greenwood. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that we want you to be aware of, and to say that we wouldn't do this, we think it's a slam dunk, that's why we were doing a special election. If we thought that, we wouldn't be having 3 town meetings, and we wouldn't be going out and addressing all of your concerns. We would just ignore it, because we just think it's a slam dunk. We don't. We want you educated to what we're doing.
Just real quick, just in case you can't tell.
I'm passionate.
Between Tom and I's passion, we're gonna generate enough power for the city. We're no longer gonna have to use electricity. So we're actually talking about going solar. That's a whole nother deal. We'll talk about it later. But I appreciate Tom's passion. Yes, ma'am.
Tom, if we're gonna go to do this, I want to use the right terminology, you're saying reissue a new bond for the tax. Why would you want to have a date ending on it? Why wouldn't you want it, is it called no sundown or whatever?
No sunset.
Because I would think that if we're going to go to the trouble of getting this passed, which we all agree we do have a traffic issue at certain times of the day, why would you ever want it to end? Wouldn't you want it to just go forever so that we can always maintain this new road, new highway,
That's a
new
good
bypass? It seems like vote once and be done, one and done.
The reason that you wouldn't do that now is because we have in 2026, the quarter-cent sales tax for streets, which is already, you voted on to fund that purpose. You've already said to do that. It's generating the same amount of income.
Yeah, but you're gonna now be in charge of taking care of this new road.
No.
No.
Oh, I
It's a
thought you
highway.
said
It's a state
highway.
highway.
You said we were gonna take on,
Existing 10 spurs that
Existing
you drive
10
on now will be ours.
Right. Just to maintain.
That's
not
the new
build.
maintenance that we will have.
but then I would think he'd need more money in his budget.
But
Possibly.
we can't pass a bond to build a new highway and to maintain a city street. I mean, that's not even doable. I don't think you
What?
can do that. It's-
When the
You're talking about building a new highway in partnership with a highway, and then saying, go ahead and add on, taking, but and as he just explained, the 3/4 cent or third that he gets is for that already. You have that in place.
It's already there. It'd be
He's getting
ridiculous for us to say,
$300,000.
oh, we're gonna need another quarter forever.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to, in 2026, to give him
An
a
extension.
quarter-cent permanent,
Yeah.
so that he doesn't have to worry about a sunset. That could happen, that's a discussion we could have in 2026, if you think he needs more money for roads.
And I take it by Mr. Wade's reaction, a tax without a sunset does not sit well with a lot of people.
I've never seen a sunset.
Well, sure you have, because we had well,
I mean, we've got
without voting.
We got the same thing going on right now. We're gonna vote to extend permanently the half-cent road tax in Arkansas
Correct?
next November.
Yep. My
And
question,
on top of a 1.3%, never seen that before, per gallon, per dollar, 1.3% per dollar tax on gasoline, and 3% per dollar on diesel to fix roads. And I mean, it's, you know,
it's perpetual.
it's just,
And I would say to that, and I'm not, please don't, I'll run for office again in 3 years. Hopefully this is either forgotten or it's good, I don't know, it's not the point. When you have something, somebody's got to pay for it. And I know that doesn't seem nice sometimes, but that's the way it is. And I'm gonna go back to real quick, and I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but somebody's gonna have to pay for it, and what he's got, and the sunsets that have come up for that there's been 2. We are in our second 10-year term of our 3/4 cent sales tax. And there are councilmen, and I agree, I'm also, I wish we didn't have to put a sunset on it, because you don't have to worry about it anymore, but People like to see what you did the first time you told them you were gonna ask for it. So that 3/4 cent sales tax that we keep talking about, that gives him 300, gives Stuart, Chief Bryan 300, and Parks 300,000, has come up. We did a 10-year. They evidently, the citizens, liked it. We put it back out for another vote. They passed it again. We're about 4 years into that. And it will come up again in 6 years. And the citizens will have another opportunity to go, we're done with that, or we appreciate it and keep doing what you're doing. I want to touch real quick. I'm going to get you, and then you. I want to say one thing about the, you mentioned the dangerous, and I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Wade, but I think you were talking about it being dangerous that it could fail.
Hey, yeah. But just 4 minutes.
Special elections, and I know sometimes that throws it, oh my gosh, they're trying to sneak something by us. I don't feel that way at all. In my opinion, a special election, you can now come in as a voter and focus on what's that one thing on the ballot, or two in this case, two votes, but it's for one project. Now, I do think it's somewhat dangerous sometimes to stick something in a general election that you're passionate about and you feel like the citizens ought to be looking at. I know I do this. I've come into a general election and I'm ready to get out of here. And I'm going down there, and if I see a tax, because that's what it's going to be listed as, it's going to say, I may vote no, and I don't even know what it's about. I want you to get people educated so they can come in and vote on what they're voting, and be educated on the vote. So I think it is, you know, we were accused, the city was accused of dialing in to the Weather Channel or somebody and scheduling a special election for the PD building on a cold, horrible night. Well, it turns out that's exactly what happened. But I promise you, we didn't pick it. Now, December the 10th, to answer, I think, some questions, and I agree with the folks that are talking about not all the facts are out there, and I get that. We can pursue it now with what the facts that we have, and absolutely, people's lives will be disrupted. There is no question about it. Some won't care. Some will be grateful, because I know this for a fact. I've already talked to a lady that's, I'm just assuming to be bought out. And then there will be others that, I can't believe this is my home for 50 years, when they're taking my whole front yard. That's not going to be our, fortunately and unfortunately, it's not the city's responsibility to work on those details, because that's our job. The only responsibility we have, or had, was to negotiate this property, and we've done that.
Mayor, that's the point I was wondering.
And you're next.
Is that, and Wade commented about it, and some others, we would absolutely love, you know, and I went to Little Rock with Doug, I've been interested in this from day one. We would absolutely love to have a picture of what that intersection will look like. Where exactly will that road be? Is it over against the current road, or is it really out there like that? What's all this look like? How's it going to work? We'd love to know that, but that's not how the state works. They, you know, Doug alluded to this earlier, there's this hierarchy, there's these lists that they have. They're not going to do this final plan until this is a project for them. And you know, if this vote fails, RDOT moves on to the next project. They go down the list to the next one. They're not spending the engineering and the, you know, we would all love to see that. Well, I don't know whether I want to vote for this or not. I told somebody at the last meeting, I live on Coker Street. I don't like stoplights at all. I fully expect, I'm one of those guys that wish there wasn't any stoplights. I fully expect I won't like that intersection at Coker Street that I have to drive through every morning. But it's going to be whatever it is. I mean, we're not the engineers and we don't build highways. And unfortunately, I think that's just a fact of life. I mean, we would absolutely all like to know the route and who's impacted, what homeowners might be impacted by it. But I don't think there's any way that we're going to know that.
We won't. In a perfect world, in a perfect situation, I don't know if any of these situations are ever perfect. I've talked to many communities that have done this, and it's never absolute perfect. I talked to one, I'll tell you right now, I talked to one that wasn't thrilled about how the condition of the highway that they inherited was. And they said, we understand that they've corrected that since then. I talked to him a couple of times, and he's like, it wasn't very good, but they came back and fixed it. So that was a concern of mine immediately. Well, am I going to inherit, are we going to inherit 3 miles of pathetic roads and bridges? And, you know, life throws you some curves sometimes, but that's not what the understanding is. Yes, sir.
I was wondering, when was the first bypass done and how did it impact the growth of Greenwood?
No, the old highway, dates, who's here that's older than me? Not many people.
1978,
Huh? And this is not helping any, is it? And by the way, I can't stop this. It's like Santa Claus. Y'all watch that movie? I can't stop it. It just keeps coming back. Elaborate on what you're talking about.
Well, I just kind of looking at your drawing up there, it's my understanding that 71 came, you know, down Spur 10 into Greenwood and turned back down, you know, Coker Street and then backed out, well, down Coker Street all the way down to,
Yeah.
about roughly Clark Chapel Road or whatever. There.
This wasn't here.
Right, that wasn't
That's what
there.
he's talking about, yeah.
And so to me, when they built that, that was really a direct,
That was a bypass.
yeah, I mean, that really, you know,
And it didn't,
Greenwood was still ways away from that, you know.
is your
and
point that
so
it didn't hurt us, I hope?
That's what it looks like, you know, Greenwood's
around
run.
through Jenny Lynn,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
across there where the auction thing is.
But I mean, I've been here just 20 years, but it seems like, you know, Greenwood has grown tremendously
Flourished, yeah.
since that time.
Yeah, that didn't hurt anything. And believe me, I am as much concerned of the local downtown vendor, whether you're a mom and pop shop selling dresses and jewelry, or if you're McDonald's and Casey's and all those people. This mayor, and no mayor in his right mind, wants to do something that adversely affects downtown business. I mean, that would be just ridiculous, or political suicide, if nothing else. So I think, and is there a guarantee that it won't bother anybody? No, there's never, we don't have very many guarantees in life. And there's one that we know, and that's religion. We won't get into that right now. But, so it's a tough thing. The toughest thing, I think, and the hardest answer, or the hardest thing for me to try to talk about and explain is those people that don't know. That really bothers me as much as anything. The folks that live on this property and don't know if it's going to come to their front door or if it's going to come through the middle of their home. I wish I knew that, as Daniel said. We don't know. And RDOT assures me, as he said, you're not going to know until we get certain phases out of the way.
Are you going to see how
Yes, sir.
fired every citizen?
The other thing I was wondering, assuming that the bond issue passes or whatever, what is the timeline? When can we expect this, that we'd be driving on it?
I get giddy when I talk about it, so I'm sorry for being giddy, but when we first started going up there, it was like, okay, let's calm down. This is not going to happen anytime soon. This takes a long time. You're talking to RDOT. Well, the more I bug them, and the more, I'm not bragging, they know. Every time I see a state representative or a senator, they typically go the other way because they're like, oh my gosh, it's the mayor from Greenwood, and that's all he wants to talk about is helping him with this traffic relief. We weren't given any information. It was like, start the process and we'll see how it goes. As of now, the engineers are not, the surveyors that you see on site, there's 3 crews that are working our community. 2 of those, I've talked to 2 crew leaders. Both of them tell me that they are, when you see that, one, they refer to it as a hot project. 2, when these guys are on site anywhere, they're considered 2-year men. In other words, one guy looked right at me and said, when I'm on the job, you're looking at driving on the road in 2 years. That's extremely, unusually, a lot quicker than normal. Now, am I guarantee you that in 2 years you're on it? But that's what they're telling me. And Miss, where's Danielle? The deputy director in Little Rock, Lori Tudor, told me 3 years first. I guess she didn't want me to get too giddy, but she said, you're probably talking about 3 years, and then now they're telling me 2 years. So it's not a promise from me, but that's coming from RDOT. Yes, sir. Now that's of new construction. That doesn't mean that will be completely 4-lane all the way to 71, but that's new construction. By the way, I looked at him and I said, and he was right when I first presented this was nothing more than 2-lane. I didn't think 2-lane into 2, and they're like, no, we're not gonna do that. You gotta build for the future.
Yeah.
So I said, wow, you're gonna build, if you phase it, or you're gonna build 4 lanes and funnel it into 2, that's gonna be horrible. And somebody looked at me, maybe Tom, and said, have you been to Northwest Arkansas? That's what they do until they get money. Did you?
Yeah, I appreciate, Mayor, all of your work and stuff, and it looks good. I think we need a bypass, and this looks good. I was just concerned about those people out there. When I saw where that was headed, and I just think people need to be aware.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you for answering the questions.
I don't know that I did, but I hope that.
It's good.
And by the way, I've said, you see my Jeep around town sitting on the side of the road. I'm not broken down typically, but I've sat out here on the other side of Keys too, between Mount Harmony and that. I'm trying to imagine in some crazy world in my, how in the world are they going to do that? Well, I just drive away because I don't know. I have no clue. Yes, sir.
You said the vote's coming up December 10th. Is that just city?
Residents
So
that live in the city.
We live 5 miles out on Red Brown.
We can annex you tonight.
Bring city water out there.
Danielle, if you get that paper up here. Oh, you need water and sewer?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk. Unfortunately, it is. And believe me, I think Boonville folks would probably come in and vote with this if they had an opportunity, or anybody that lives on the east side. Yes, ma'am.
You said that this is gonna happen at some, that RDOT's gonna bring in this regardless if we vote now or if it's.
No, I hope I didn't say that. I hope what I was trying to allude to is they're gonna make plans and they're gonna do something,
Right,
because the future is I-49.
right.
And you all know about a $20 billion bridge or
Right.
whatever, but someday that's gonna happen. I mean, it may not be in our lifetime if the Lord doesn't come back soon, but I think this isn't in their big picture, or it would not be hot.
Right.
Again, I would love to think it's all Doug, because I've bugged them so much, but it's not, obviously. I mean, I think that's part of it, and the fact that the city could possibly generate $5 million as a 20%. If we'd have looked at them, when he told me 50%, and I came back and I said, you know what, the best the city of Greenwood could ever do in a really best day would be $2 million. We probably would not be having this discussion.
But if it's a hot topic, it sounds like it's gonna happen regardless if we pass this or not.
I
It's a
don't,
hot topic now,
now,
because we're giving them land. We're knowing they don't have to buy that.
Yeah.
We're contributing, we're partnering with them, so that moves us up in the line. I can tell you right now, 45 is in the works from 0 Street all the way to 71. You don't, it's just now to the point where they're maybe 2 years out from starting to turn dirt. But do you know how much Fort Smith had to cough up in order to get that project on their hotbed? Quite a bit of money. Because that's how they prioritize and do. They say, hey, if you're serious about this, we're serious about this. How soon do you want it? Do you want it now, or do you want it in 10 years from now?
go ahead.
And so the 10 years projection is, yeah, they may come and do that anyway for this road, but it may be 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, and I would say that's exactly, yeah, thank you for coming. I would say, I think it will happen someday. I don't know what that means. Now, what happens to Greenwood in the meantime is my concern. Are we at a point where we could take advantage of being in somewhat some control? I've been told more than once, I don't want to do this, more than once by more than one person, being the director and the deputy director, that if we do our part, being securing this, which we not, and by the way, Dr. Burgess owns this, no secret. He will not allow me to give him any money of city funds until he knows this is going to happen. And nobody wants this more to happen than Dr. Burgess. I wish he was here. He's like E.F. Hutton. When he talks, everybody listens. He's a dear icon in Greenwood. And this is, and I'll tell you real quick too, this is, I think it was funny. I still think it's funny. We were talking not long ago in the office, and he said, Doug, this is important to me. I'm 86 years old. This is very important to me. I want this done. And he kind of did this to himself. He said, I'm not going to be here all that much longer. And I said, Dr. Burgess, you're going to be here longer than I am. And I was standing up. He looked at me full up and down. He goes, we need to do this in your lifetime, as if I'm not gonna be on. I think he was basically saying, yeah, we need to get it done for you too. So,
Let me run one last.
yeah,
thing.
I know
Might
there's a couple
help you.
more than
The way I looked at it was, it's called lost opportunity. If we develop this now, and within 3 to 5 years, we're allowed to start economic development here, and RDOT's plan is 15 years from now, we lose 15 years of potential economic growth. Do you want to have that economic growth sooner, or do you want to have it later? And I think the sooner we get economic growth and development down in this corridor, the better it is for the city of Greenwood and the residents of Greenwood. As far as the amenities that are brought in, the tax base that we don't be looking at just stagnating at 300,000. Maybe we could raise our city sales and use tax base based on the growth that we have to $500,000. And that might, over the years, that's how we're looking down the road. We're not stopping just at what we're looking at today and saying it's going to forever be that way. We need to be looking forward, thinking about growing the city. There are some people here that they don't want the city to grow. They want to stay right where you are, right? Just keep it at 10,000 and we love it and that's how it's going to be. Eventually, you're not going to be able to sustain or support that. Your parks department will go away. You're going to downsize your police and your fire. The money that fire gets with the assets that they purchase, the pumpers and the stations and the personnel, that helps keep your ISO down, your insurances are lower. We do things that are going to impact the greater good for the citizens of Greenwood. And I'm saying that, and I'm a Fort Smith resident, but I know, he's getting me to move here. But
I agree with wanting our community to grow. I personally feel like the way we grow is to annex towards out to Fort Smith, which I feel like that's what we need to do.
Yeah, that's a whole other meeting.
Yes. Are we, because this election is coming up December 10th, are you going to send out a flyer to every citizen in Greenwood? Because I think you do have a information issue. I mean, I've talked to several people, believe it or not, who are involved in this community who don't really know that this is going on.
We've been on Facebook.
But I haven't gotten anything in the mail.
No, we haven't mailed anything. The city cannot, the city is very restricted in what we can pay for regarding an election. We can let people know there is an election, certainly we're doing that. We do it with our big sign. Obviously we can't tell you how to vote. I can if you meet me outside later. No, but the mailers, no, we've not really considered. We're on every social media we possibly can. I know Ms. Shopak's helping us with that.
What about your water bills? Can't put
We
something on
talked
the
about
water bill?
stamping that, and we may still do that. We can do that. I will tell you that I, for one, will never see that. It's going to be as tiny as everything else, but it's a way to do it. You will never, ever, and if you know a way, and if anybody else knows a way to let me know, how to let people know of anything. We had a planning commission meeting last night, and there were people here that didn't know about variances being asked for. And it's a tough thing. Communication is a tough thing these days. We've been on television at least 6 times. At least. And I was interviewed again tonight, and it was about a 5-minute interview, and I promise you they'll show 3 seconds of it, because I'm not very good on television. And they were here tonight. Channel 5 was here tonight. So we're doing the best we can. We are by no means trying to hide anything. I've got a giant marquee out here. Thank you. I got a giant marquee out here that says we're having these meetings every month, or every time.
Resident newspaper.
Resident newspaper has it. And Citizen has been running it. So,
So,
yes.
just to
Yeah.
address that real quick, not to interrupt, I'm sorry, but,
No, you're fine.
because communication is incredible. For the family that's outside of city limits, I'm in the exact same boat as you. And so thank you for investing your time here
Yeah.
tonight. It doesn't go wasted. One, because you're educating yourself and knowledge is power. And if you simply will find 3 people in your sphere, 3 people that you know that live inside the city limits, and just simply share the facts with them. I'm not saying you have to tell them which way to vote, but simply share the facts with them. That's how you're spreading the communication.
So an annexation
Also,
application.
I know that a lot of the group may not be on social media, but pick up your phone. Does everybody follow the city of Greenwood in here? On Facebook? Does everybody follow the city of Greenwood on Facebook? The next meeting coming up with just what we're doing right here tonight is Thursday, December 5th at 6 o'clock. And so I think you'll be hosting the same type meeting. I know everybody can't get out. Danielle may take us to Facebook Live, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
And I've asked for taco soup, and nobody's.
if we make it potluck, are we saying more people will show up?
I think, oh, absolutely, I can
Yeah.
promise you that.
Okay.
Anytime there's food
Yeah,
involved.
I can-
Okay, let me get this gentleman, Macy, and then I'll get back.
Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, the only place that the city could grow technically is the south, and obviously the east.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we have one of the best school systems in the state.
Absolutely.
We have one of the best sports programs for the kids in
Yeah, they're
the
okay.
state. And we have one of the safest,
Second in the state.
second safest
Today.
cities. So everybody wants to live here. We're growing anyways. So we have to figure this out.
Yep, we do. And we can figure it, man, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to anyway. We need to figure it out now or in the future. And I would love to be a part of it, figuring it out now. Whether it passes this time or not, I'll be back at you another time. I mean, I just think this is so important that it's, and the reason, and I didn't really say this, the reason we believe the special election was the right thing to do, one, is this went from $26 million. And I know we're only talking a few months, if you wait till the primaries. This went from 26 million to 33 in 2 years. It's not 33 anymore, I can promise you. It's probably 34, and I'm guessing. So the sooner you figure it out, the less it costs you or the next generation. So I think it's that important. Somebody else, AC, did you have another one?
Well, again, just thinking about the Phoenix Avenue widening and stuff there, you know, and I know using the old Phoenix, and, you know, and trying to go from, you know, Towson all the way over to Rogers, you know, you can kind of see what it used to be just from Towson to Jenny Lind, right there. That was the way that things used to be all the way. And, you know, going on that new part where it's, you know, 4 lanes at the center turn lane, you know, and you can just get through there, you know, to the other side of Fort Smith so much quicker. And I know there's a lot of consternation and grinding of teeth for those homes that were affected there, because, you know, you do drive by and say, gosh, yeah, their front yards are taken, you know. But for me, going from one side of Fort Smith to the other side, you know, so much easier, you know, I appreciate it, but also, you know, it didn't hurt Fort Smith. It helped their growth again, you know, tremendously.
There is a sense of when I drive down there, because I grew up there too, because I'm like, okay, here's what could happen to some people. I mean, obviously, we don't have near, I think there's 15, and I may be over a little bit of homes on 10 with the 4 lane or 5, I mean, whatever it is. There's nothing here. That doesn't affect, I mean, obviously, again, as I explained, Pinkwood is huge to me. That's not gonna, I'm not gonna promote anything that's taking that away or damaging it. But the homes that are out there, I'm very sensitive to those folks. And Phoenix Avenue, whether they're probably not all the same people living in those homes, but somebody's living in those homes still. I mean, would they like it better if it wasn't there? Maybe, but it's a tough thing when you're talking about folks at home.
One of the things I remember from years ago, talking about there only being the one bridge giving access, like towards Jack Nolan and that side.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the bypass this way, let's say that there's a tornado that comes in and it damages the existing bridge. This bypass is keeping everything still so close that what would be the odds of a tornado not taking up 2 bridges that are this close together would be my concern. I would have thought maybe they would want it further away to ensure that you still would have access.
How many of those things come into consideration with RDOT, I do not know for sure. I totally agree. And I'm going to use these bridges. I think you're talking more out.
I'm talking about the existing.
Yeah, okay. So let's just, look how close these bridges are. A new bridge and that bridge. If it's a tornado, now I've lived through a tornado in 1968 here in Greenwood, and I'm not saying they won't destroy a bridge, but typically not. You're safe getting under the bridge. Anything, let's just say they're destroyed, it doesn't matter what it is, earthquake, heaven forbid, you're stuck, and we have no control. I don't know. I know what you're saying.
Because I know that in other meetings that
Sure.
that has been a concern,
Yeah.
that there's only the one way to get further out east.
RDOT themselves have never come to the city and say, here's what they don't do that. Well, they do. I'm sure people would disagree with me in other areas, but they've never done that for Greenwood, Arkansas. They did tell me, you people need to get your act together. You've got way too many ideas and nobody can settle on one. And so there were much wider versions of this, and they were deemed not feasible, whether property-wise or cost-wise. I don't know if that answered your question or not. Probably not. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Do you have any indication from RDOT whether they're going to be doing anything at all, starting at Mount Harmony to ease congestion there before it gets to the lake?
No indication yet. They're surveying way up there beyond Mount Harmony.
Right.
I don't know the answer. No, I have no indication from them officially. Once they come back and say, okay, here, we've studied this now, here's a phase or a design, everybody will know it when I know it, absolutely, but I don't have any indication of that.
Well, we don't know. What we know is that this is in play. But what we don't know is what RDOT wants to do leading into it.
Yeah, I
If they
think,
want to expand that and make it into a 4-lane to get into it, we don't know.
I'd love for it to go up between Mount Harmony and the school entrance or Wade's Place.
All the way to Jack.
Halfway, but well, at least there, yeah. They may come back and say, Mayor, this is the reason we're coming back to you. It's not 33, it's 45, because it only makes sense to do this. Now, they are looking at this specifically now, and they are saying, this works, let's get back to it. So, is there a better way? I'm sure there is. What all that involves, how much more money, how much more property. Of course, every time, we're all, and I get it, we're all concerned about those property owners, but when you start talking about going on the other side of Mount Harmony, or on the other side of Wade's Place, or all the way to Jack Nolan, even more people, and even more businesses. Some, either within 2 years of December the 10th, or 20 years from now, somebody will be affected. It's just a fact. By the way, kudos to the police department, whoever mentioned that. Here's Officer Brad. He hates it when I do this. This is one of our fine police officers, so thanks for being there too, Brad. Yes, ma'am. I can see you too, by the way.
That's what when you
Contacts
said
are
I
working
couldn't
well.
see, I was like, you should be able to see. I moved my business down here 5 years ago, and so there is some concern. I mean, I drive through town and I want to see what specials the dairy's running. I want to see what Serendipity has in their window, and I want to make sure people are like, oh, if I can't see, then I need to come see Dr. Taylor. So to move
Wow, that wasn't a commercial. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Taylor.
But
We see you.
I see all of the businesses as I'm driving through town. So there is some concern that I think diverting away from all of us who have invested our time and money in the community. I also appreciate the fact that if we grow, that's more eye exams, that's more hamburgers that Dairy's selling, that's more gas that Casey's gonna spend. Is Greenwood even prepared? I mean, we're looking down, widening, like I said, 10 and then all the way up 71. Is there water out there? I mean, are we even prepared for what the growth may be?
Not yet.
So I'm like,
You can't.
I guess it's kind of one of those, the horse before the cart, do we need to be prepared for the growth we're preparing for?
I've had businesses already, business owners, and I wasn't going to really talk about this too much, but since you brought it up, there are business owners, not specifically in Greenwood now, but there are business owners, there's land developers that are asking me, 10 going out that you just described, they're going to widen. When are you going to have water and sewer? Because they're already hearing that's going to be a 4-lane, 5-lane highway. My answer to them is, I don't know. We have water commission in place that is in charge of that. Certainly they have to come to council for approval or disapproval on things. We are trying our very best to think outside the box. I know that's an old thing, but there is no doubt, absolutely, there you go, very well, that we're going to need to do that. And we are thinking of it. Do we have plans as far as the cost yet? Not really, but I know for a fact, we have water almost, by the way, city limits of Greenwood is on the, I like to just do right and left because Sonny knows I can't read the map very well. If you're going down 10 and you're heading out to 71, everything on the right is city limits all the way to 71. Nothing on the left past You got Sweatco, remember? And then there's a couple of homes, so right in there, none of that's city limits. So we would be on that annexation train very soon too, along with this, to start making sure that we get that, and not just to grab it, but to say, we want to, control is not a very nice word sometimes, but as we all know, if the city does not control your entrances and exits out of your community, anything can pop up, anything. And use your imagination. So we want to be able to control that for you, the citizens, and say, this is what we want, and this is what we don't want. So to say, yes, we are talking about it, we're thinking about it, but if we put a water or sewer, if we went all the way to 71 now, and that never developed, we have spent a lot of your money that, in my opinion, the people that live on Bell Road, man, you're gonna get me on a soapbox now, need some sewer.
Or Coker Street.
Or Coker Street. And it's ridiculous that people in this city do not have sewer. There's no water and wastewater commissioners here tonight, so I can say, that's just my belief. It's just crazy. So I want to take care of those folks and do the best we can, but as we grow, that's got to be, yeah, we will have, we're going to do that. Somebody, somebody in this position or whatever.
I did want to
Does that
say.
answer? I will say too,
I
Doc.
mean, because like I said, the more growth, like I said, that grows everybody's
Sure.
business.
And-
And like I said, so if we're diverting, if we're diverting the traffic away from the businesses that are here, where are we is the growth ready to happen?
Well, and I would say too, to Dr. Taylor Vision out here on Highway 10 Spur Drive. Open 9 to 5, I don't know. I have, and you and I have not had a good conversation, we should before you got here. I mean, that's okay, I'm glad you're here when we're talking about this. Dr. Rao, for instance, who's a chiropractic doctor here in town, tells me, in his opinion, this is his opinion, he is a specialist, and he is a chiropractor. He doesn't believe for a second that traffic that's going through are thinking about, there's a chiropractor, I'm going to stop. They have an appointment, it's specific, they go to it, and so they're going to do that anyway. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it is at your place, you may have drop-ins, and that would be, so that type of business, to me, is more whether we go way out 20 miles from it, which of course we're not. And now I get it, if they don't see your sign and know that you're there, that's different too. So I hope it doesn't bother anything that's anybody down there.
And like I said, we want to see the city grow.
Sure. Ms. Garner, sorry.
To respond to your question about is anybody looking at that, the mayor formed an economic development committee to really actually look and stay out ahead of those kinds of things. So we do study that in terms of infrastructure in conjunction with growth. And there's some members of the committee here. I'm the co-chair of that. And so we do look at that, and we have meetings with the staff in terms of looking at that and positioning for how that growth would move forward. So I wanted to answer that question. Another, along with Farrah, I work in real estate, so commercial real estate in Fort Smith. And if you think in terms of Phoenix Avenue and the expansion that's on the east side and all the growth there, those values on Rogers Avenue, which parallel, much like this will parallel, those values on Rogers Avenue have held even stronger and higher, even with the phenomenal growth along Phoenix where the airport is. So it doesn't mean necessarily that it diminishes one when you have growth in another area. A lot of times they just enhance the growth of both from an economic development standpoint.
Mr. Goldstein, Chairman of our Parks Commission.
Mr. Mayor, at the first meeting we had, there was one individual business owner that says as soon as he's waiting for this to pass so he can expand his business that's already on Kent Highway.
Yeah, there's that may be the one I was referring to without mentioning the name, but there's a few out there that are ready. One was making sure I got water in my boat when we can. He's got water, he doesn't have sewer.
I was just going to say, I said I looked at a picture of Judy over there, and I can remember when Judy was running for mayor, running for election, but anyway, during her time, she asked me at the fairground one night, she said, what's the two things Greenwood needs? Of course, everybody in this room could answer that, and it's water, traffic, and we've needed it for a long time, and I hope it passes. Again, I'm a little bit fearful on the special election piece of it. Quite opposite approach of looking at it than everybody else is, but it needs to happen. But I need to understand one thing on that current bond issue, and I'm probably asking questions that everybody else knows, I just don't know this. If we've got money that's coming in, tax money that's coming in, that's not going to pay the principal down now, but it's going into an escrow, does that make, that, it seems to me like it should be paying that principal down.
It's a good segue. I think if everybody's pretty good with me, and I'm not leaving, I might, depending on how it goes. I'm gonna turn it over to Tom Marsh and really get down in the weeds about financing this situation.
Yeah, I didn't structure that bond, but it is totally collateralized. That's a good thing about a bond. When you do a bond, it's almost a guarantee to the bondholders because you can't just take out a loan and hope that that guy or the city pays it. You've got to put something up that collateralizes that bond that almost guarantees it. And that means that they're looking at the historical flow of revenues, it's not a guarantee, of the city sales and use tax. They know that your city is vibrant. They look at the fact that it is growing. And so they're going to go ahead and award a rather significant sized loan based on the fact that you have a guaranteed way of paying it off. So what they demanded on that loan was the fact that some bonds say you can pay off early, some say you can't. Some say that you can make additional principals, some say you can't, or you can only do it at certain times. So I'd have to go back and look at the actual bond, but our bond people, Raymond James, came back with the best approach. We actually put this out to 3 different companies. I did. And brought them all in, and I gave them poetic license. I said, you can be as creative as you want to be, but here's your caveat. You cannot do something that's going to overly burden the general fund, obviously overburdening you, and increase taxes. Now the key was increase taxes, not increase the duration of a current tax. You're not going to pay any more or less out of your pocket than you currently are today. You're just going to do it for a longer period of time. So the question is, are you really going to do it for a longer period of time? Now, before I did the first actual presentation at the town hall back in October, I literally was up most of the night dreaming and playing this out in my head. I went over and over and over it, and then the press came in and they sat down and they had their cameras, so it was a good time to take a break. Well, I walked around and there was Ryan Bowman in my dream. Ryan Bowman is from Raymond James. He is the guy that actually is working with us in the financing, and we've worked very close together, and he's sitting there, and he's a very soft-spoken individual that really does a great job of dumbing down, if you will, the nuances of bond financing. And he was sitting there just observing, and I walked up to him and said, well, how do you think it's going? And he said, well, it's going pretty good. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't scold them. That's what he told me not to do in my dream. I woke up going, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe it. He told me don't scold anybody. And that's what I thought I was doing to you today, and I didn't mean to do that. I was just very passionate about it because there's a lot of things that people have anxieties and angsts about that I'm hoping that we're going to be able to explain it to you in such a way that we're going to do the best with what we have to do or work with, and that is the way it's being financed. This is what was presented to us by RDOT. We needed to go to them, so I think the way Raymond James put it was, we're one bomb away from a refinery blowing up, or we're one tariff of a bad trade deal away from the interest rates going skyrocketing and things going haywire. So we know what we know now. We don't know what we know a year from now or 6 months from now or whenever we get around to putting it on the ballot. We also know that we went to RDOT and said, we need to lock this in. We can't go and say, what do we bond this for? Well, put a not to exceed number of this, and maybe you need it, maybe you don't. We can't keep going back to the voters. So they said, oh, don't worry, we're going to send you a lock-in, but you have to send us a resolution and an ordinance, I think it was, to show you're serious. And your city council has to sign on that dotted line before we even take this off and start making it a project. Because we're not going to spend dollars if we don't think you guys are going to be serious about spending dollars. So that was all in the preliminary conversations. So what they did, don't tell me that Facebook's not listening. Because I didn't touch this phone, and Siri wants to jump in there. So they came out and they said, bottom line is that there's a disclaimer down here that you can't read. Theoretically, we're going to be only responsible for 20% of the construction cost, not 20% of everything that they have to do, the preliminary engineering and all that stuff, even the right-of-way and utilities. The only reason that there's a dollar amount listed here from the City of Greenwood partnering offer of $100,000 is because we told them we have the letter of intent and some significant donation or funding through a reduced price for the land that we're going to be needing for the bypass and or traffic relief, as they would call it, because it all refers to it as a bypass here. So that's why they put it in there, because that's not an RDOT number. That we're going to be giving it to RDOT, but they're just going to pool that in, and they know that land's taken care of. So what they basically said is we went to them with 2 phases of this project. Phase 1, which is the way we thought we could finance this, we would go and try to pay off the first phase, which was the new construction. I went to the mayor and said, why are we looking at the whole thing? Why not build what we don't have and then worry about what we do have? In other words, widen what we do have after we build what we don't have. And so that would help lessen the burden over time of the construction. So that's why they broke it up into 2, what you see here as phases. Now, it's not saying now that we've combined it into one, which is this last column, because that's where they want the dollars, that they can't start the widening of 71 anytime they want or desire.
But better or worse?
Worse.
Thanks, Joel.
Joel.
Are you scared of the dark?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Do you take our insurance? Yes. Well, okay, see, I needed an eye doctor, and that plug worked very well, because I don't have one. Anyway, so bottom line is the 3 million and the 1.8 million is a 4.9 plus the 100,000, 4.8 rather, plus the 100,000 is $4.9 million. They want us to they're going to lock us in at about a $5 million number. That price of that construction and that widening project right now, when it's done 3 to 5 years from now, if it takes that long or even longer, could be $50 million. If you could lock in right now to generate the impetus necessary in order to get this project off the ground and done for a potentially $50 million road, I think it's a pretty good deal. It's a good return on your money. And it's a good quick return on your money. And if I told you you're going to get that return and you're not going to have to pay additional tax in order to make it happen. You're going to pay longer tax, you're going to extend the tax, but you're not going to pay a brand new tax on top of that. That's, to me, that's even a better return on your money. So how it works and why you have 2 bond ballot issues to vote on is there is a restriction on the bond for the police that says that when you pay off the bond, the actual amount of the quarter-cent sales tax sunsets. It goes away. It's gone. So when it's gone, you have to then say, well, the only reason we want to give you permission to refund and retire this bond is because we also want you to take that quarter-cent sales tax, which is the second issue on the ballot, and repurpose it and structure it in such a way that it pays for all or a portion of the traffic relief project. Now that wording right there is in your actual ballot. That has to be there because it's only paying a portion. Obviously, RDOT's paying the lion's share of it. So you're not paying for the entire traffic relief project. The bonds right now are structured at a 1.15 times coverage, and I want to explain that in a little bit because that's probably the most conservative approach. Right now, it's running at a 1.25% coverage, which is would generate enough today, or December 10th, in order to not have to do an Amendment 78 financing, where we just go to the bank and get a 5-year operational loan for $500,000 to make up the deficit between the $4.5 million that your bond is going to generate, and the $5 million that we need to pay in order to lock in our obligatory agreement amount. So Right now, the debt service on the first, the quarter-cent sales tax would be $285,000 per year. So the bond would generate proceeds of about $6.6 million. We are then having to refund or pay down or pay off the first bond, which right now, even though the numbers are like 2.25, because that's what it is now, we know that by the time we actually get the bonds issued, another principal payment will be made, because that's done in January. So we're looking at a $2.1 million balance as a principal balance, taking it away from what is currently the bond proceeds at 1.15 coverage. It generates an estimated $4.5 million, and it's right now set to mature at 2055. Again, we talked about, don't let that scare you, because that's assuming there's no growth in your city sales and use tax. And we're saying you're going to have growth in the city sales and use tax year over year. Some years it's 2% growth, some years it's 4.5% growth. But the average is about a 3.5% growth. But I want to see us to put an economic development plan, or basically an economic value added to that, and say that we're going to do things with that road that's going to generate the interest to generate the economic development. So I'm looking and betting on the fact that we are going to be able to grow that city sales and use tax and attract people that are going to help pay for the roads that are not citizens of the city of Greenwood. I'm already helping you guys, because I eat lunch here, I go to the dairy, I stop at McDonald's, I go, I do that already. And every time I do, I go, thank you, A&P. And because I know it's coming back, and we're redeploying it in the Parks Department and various other things that are amenities to bring people and draws people to Greenwood. The non-bond financing right now is about $105,000 debt service over a 5-year period. We don't need voter approval for that. That's operationally driven. And that would be a debt that would be borne by the funds that are already accumulated in the street department. It could be. There's $2 million some odd already in his fund that's been amassed. That's a drop in the bucket. That right now is that's what a pumper costs for the fire department. So give you some kind of how that kind of plays out with the actual physical tangible asset. So there's reasons there's 2 bond issues is, the first one, you have to tell us to pay off that bond. We need that to be able to cease that bond. And then you say, in addition, at the same time, we want you to take that money that is now sunsetted and extend it to pay for the traffic relief program. I will tell you that if one of those is voted yes and the other one's voted no, you killed the project.
Can you say that again?
If one of those is voted yes and the other one, doesn't matter which one, you could vote yes on 2 and no on 1, or no on 2 and yes on 1, you kill the project. It has to be yes on both, because we can't do one without the other. You see, you can say, yeah, pay off that bond, okay? If you don't give us the means to generate the funds to pay it off, we don't have $2.1 million to go to the bank, pay it off, because you told us we can do it. We're not going to do that, because we'd have to take that out of our operating monies. Because what you told us is, you can't go and refinance this in order to generate this money to pay that off. That's what you're telling us. So we have to have both. It has to be both. That's why there's 2 ballot issues. And it's just the legal way it's set up. So that's why the first ballot says it's a refunding bonds. That's the issue number 1, pay off the first one. And there's a maximum principal amount listed here. That's to give us cushion or contingency in case there's we miss that number. And then the second one is the street improvement bonds, which is telling us that with the money we're generating, you're going to generate it by allowing us to pledge that quarter-cent local sales tax from a bond issue to do both of those things, pay off the loan and extend it.
I'm afraid that if you don't get the word out to people, that's what's going to happen. They're not going to vote for both.
We need you to be on board.
Isn't there some way that you can get to the people who are going to come vote and tell them, look, you need to vote yes on both, or just, all goes away?
2 yeses for Greenwood.
You will see some
Bob, some slogan or something out on the road, some signs or something.
Yes, we formed a committee, and Yes, we've started raising money. The name of the committee is the Greenwood Committee for Progress and Safety, GPS. Cheryl is a member, Farrah's a member, Buddy's a member, I'm a member. We've got about a dozen people right now. We've got some money raised. We're looking at, somebody brought up mailing, that's one of the, we've done the research. None of this needs to drop more than about 2 weeks out in election campaigning. Otherwise, it becomes wallpaper, and you stop seeing it. We're meeting tomorrow with, start developing signs, and go all over town. We're gonna have big signs at the intersections, we're gonna have yard signs. We've looked at, Kimberly, we looked at doing a direct mail to every mailbox. Holy cow, is that expensive? Not sure we can raise that much money. But we're gonna start having those things out. We've got somebody developing, we talked about social media. One of our committee members is developing a Facebook video movie type thing that's gonna get shared and shared and shared. And one of the components of the plan that we started addressing is a phone tree. Now, you can't do a phone tree on landlines anymore. When was the last time you saw a Greenwood phone book printed? 2017, somebody had a landline. So, what the phone tree is gonna be is everybody that's on the committee is gonna start, and they're gonna pick somebody, they're gonna take their phone, they're gonna go to the page called favorites. And everybody on the committee is gonna start that phone tree by calling their 10 favorites. And asking them to call their 10 favorites. Because all of us live by these crazy things now. So that's another way that we're going to get that out to people. And we won't reach everybody. You know, we could set off an atom bomb in Doug's office, and there would be some people that would say, what was that noise?
It looks like you already do.
No, that's my office. So, no, we won't reach everybody, but we'll reach a lot of people, and we will reach those who are looking.
But you're working on it anyway.
Yes, and and if anybody wants to participate, to help, we need help. And we're gonna try to get all the things in play by the end of this week. That's got our goal.
Hey,
Yeah,
question, I mean, if this is quick, if this did fail, can it be recycled in the primary election? I mean, do you even know, I mean, you may not even know the answer to that.
I don't know that we do know the answer to that.
Yeah,
yet.
I just wanted.
Yeah.
There's time frames, I'm not sure we're restricted on time
Yeah,
on this issue, but.
and that was an issue.
RDOT
Yeah.
involved.
Well, RDOT for sure, but there, you have to do things in a certain manner in order to get it on the ballot.
I don't think it can, because
Charlotte.
there's a lot of,
Yeah.
with
Charlotte.
the line that the gentleman that Tom was referring to a minute ago, the days to hit this December 10th
Yeah.
are close.
This one was like to the day, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And RDOT, Doug didn't say this earlier, they don't show us the books, but they kind of let us have the impression that they have some funds right now that are kind of coming up on the stack. And in 4 months, that money may have gone somewhere else.
Well, the engineering company was the #1 project in the state of Arkansas.
Yeah, and on that note, if I may, so Keith Gibson, probably shouldn't use his name, but I just did, is the newest commissioner of RDOT, and he lives in Lavaca. And that is a huge deal for us and everybody in this area. If you don't know, the last commissioner that represented us, if you will, lived in Northwest Arkansas, and they did some mighty good things. So he's down here, and I did receive a call from Mr. Gibson, I always do that wrong. Gibson, thank you. To say just that, there are funds that will go probably directly toward the design phase of this. And he didn't say how much or what, but yeah, it's on their radar for sure. I'm sorry, yes ma'am.
I just found out that I won't be able to vote for it, because I'm pretty sure I live outside the city limits.
Again, we can annex.
But, I was wondering, is there like a minimum number of people that, I just heard that 400 people showed up.
If one votes no, and one votes, or nobody votes yes, it's.
Okay, so if one person shows up, it's okay.
And traditionally in Greenwood, special elections are decided by 300 or 400, not dollars, 300 votes. You know.
Really?
It's sad because it's how many voters? I don't know if we know those numbers. Charlotte?
2,800 in the last.
2,800, around 3,000 voters, and it's just,
So someone wanted to help the committee, how would they do that?
It would make a check out to the Greenwood.
That way, or-
If you would like to participate, like in the phone tree, for instance,
Or any,
or anything like that, you can call me on Bob Purvis, you can call myself at 479-474-1380. You can call the mayor's office. too.
Yeah, call my office, call City Hall, we'll get you.
I'm kind of the gopher, I do the grunt work, so, yeah. Yeah, call the mayor's office, give him your name, and I will call you, and we'll find a way that you can get. But you take checks.
Okay. Well, I was showing you here, we've already alluded to, we already talked about the current police bond. Originally, the voters said, it's okay, 2039, fine, $3.5 million bond, annual debt service of $330,000, we have an estimated payoff of 2.1. But as far as everybody knew before coming in here, or the majority did, is that it would mature in 2039. Well, we're asking Raymond James has come back with a 35-year bond. That gives us cushion. It doesn't mean it's going to last that long. But that's a 16-year extension from the current maturity date that's already approved that we already intend on paying off early. So that's, let me show you why that's important. That's because this is our historical sales tax for the bond. This is the police bond amounts that come and go directly to Simmons Bank. Over 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, and now currently 19. And the historical growth that it's had since 2013 when the actual bond was approved. 3.8, 4.17, 2.61, 2.9, 3.81. 2019, right now, we're tracking at 2%. That's public knowledge. You can see that on city and towns when you look on our website. But we're right now at about 2%. So it ebbs and flows. We think that might hit about a 2.5 year end, month over month for the cumulative year. But it's still healthy. It's still growth. And so the bond is locked in as though there's no change, there's no growth. So when we look back at this, the bond retirement at, let's just say we maintain an average of 3.47% city sales use tax growth, the amount of time that it would reduce would be the estimated maturity of now 2038 is 1 year less than the actual bond that you approved in the first place. That's a pretty good conservative estimate in growth because we have plans that we know about and are in the works that supposedly are going to generate future growth in city sales and use tax. And we talk about this at all the city council meetings. We talk about it with water sewer as far as, they're the water sewer of dreams. They build it and they will come. And that's how we have to get them to start thinking. And then the bond retirement at no city sales and use tax growth. It stays flat for the rest of the time, never grows. We will still, estimated maturity of this would be 2048, which is still less than the 2055. No growth, still goes a little, about 9 years, 10 years, about 9 years more. With growth, 1 year less than the actual current bond that you have approved. So that's one of the things I wanted to point out. And I also wanted to point out on this schedule, it's very hard to read, they're looking at a current rate right now today for that bond of 2.87%. 25 basis points above or below changes the interest rates and changes the net P&I. But you realize that as we pay off the debt early, we cut off, and I will show you that right here. Oops, let me go right to here. Paying it off early cuts out $1.2 million in interest. So it behooves us. You're not paying $9 million. You're not paying $8 million or whatever it is over the time when you add the interest to it. By paying that off with just a 3.5% city sales and use tax current run rate growth, you're going to cut off $1.2 million of the debt.
And this debt is just the building, the police building, not their operating budget.
No, this is the police. This is your road.
Just the.
No, the original bond, just for the building, the original bond.
The original bond.
This is paying off their, because like I said, I'm not aware of this. So it's paying off, what are you paying off with when you said?
We're paying off the police bond, but the principal on the police bond is $2.1 million.
Okay, and so the money that
We're saving all the
paying
interest.
off the building?
Yes.
And then repurpose it?
Correct.
Okay,
Exactly.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was clear in case I got asked that question.
Correct. We pay it off, and if we pay it off now, we save all the interest that we would be paying for the next 10 years.
We would all do that with any loan we have.
Exactly. It's like refinancing your home, right? Something to pay off your home loan, or paying an additional payment in capital, principal payment. Even at no growth, you're going to cut off about $250,000 in interest, maturing the bond at 2048. No growth is no option for me. I am an advocate of growing the city and growing city sales and use tax. We have to do that, and it will happen. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen in 3 months, but it's going to happen in my lifetime, in tenure here. The interesting thing about this $1.2 million of savings is that if this grows more than that, this shortens, and that grows up to be a bigger savings. So we thought this all the way through. I wanted to go back to this. One of the concepts that this city didn't have, I've only been here 2 years, okay? So I had to get my feet wet first, and then I had to go find out what bear I can poke, and then I had to start figuring out where the helm is to turn the Titanic around. So I'm starting to do that, and I'm starting to introduce new concepts to all the departments in their budgeting process, because...
I hired him.
Okay.
I use him.
I needed a job, no. Economic value added is what I tried to implement to the city directors. And that is, an economic value is an incremental difference in the rate of return on the city's cost of capital. Essentially, it measures the value the city will generate from funds invested into it by its citizens. You give us $1, and you want us to go make that come back more than $1. That's what I want everybody to keep thinking anytime they want to spend $1, is what's that return, and how quick are we going to get it? That return on equity or return on investment, it's got to come back to you in your lifetime. And I'm not talking about, oh, I'll spend $1 now, 10 years from now, we're going to see a return on that. You can't sell that. So the idea behind EVA is that the city creates tangible and intangible returns whenever possible to their citizens. The measure of that goes beyond creating surplus cash. I'm not just creating cash, because that idle cash does nothing for you, and we do have a lot of idle cash. I want to cash manage the city's funds. So my goal is to take the money that's sitting idle and get it invested in treasury bills and get it short, long-term, medium, generate more interest that we can now start putting it away for contingency funds. We do not have a contingency fund. So that's one of my promises and my goals, is to try to get that contingency fund built and do it in a way that's not going to be a hardship on any of you. We're going to do it by treasury bill interest. We're going to do it by managing our cash instead of sitting it in a checking account, getting 0.15% interest. So that's why I need a 3 to 5 and 10-year capital plan, because I need to know what's committed and how long it will be committed for. So economic value added asserts that the city should create returns at a rate above the cost of capital. That's my goal. And so this is what I want you to leave here with. What if the measure fails? Okay, this is what's going to happen, just so you know. The current sales tax still exists, and it will exist for at least 10 years, at least. If the city sales and use tax goes down because we don't have good economic growth, could even be longer than 10 years. Could go all the way to full maturity. So you're still going to pay it. That doesn't go away. And guess what else? You're not going to have a new road. You're not going to have safety relief, you're not going to have traffic relief, you're not going to have anything in that nature at all. Because you said no. Economic impact from the construction dollars spent in Greenwood will not be realized. All those people building that are going to come here and eat. And they're going to come here and buy, and they're going to come here and help pay for that road. It's a diabolical plan, but they will stay in here because there's nowhere else to go. Okay? Potential for economic growth along Highway 10 would be limited. You don't have that potential anymore because you're not widening it. You're not doing anything that's going to generate it. Traffic congestion along 10th Spur continues, just like it is today. And safety concerns about an alternate route through Greenwood would not be addressed. That's what happens if you say no to both of those items. I'm just telling you the truth. Okay, this is what happens if you say yes. You're still going to have that current sales tax. As it was established in 2013, it's still going to be there. You're not paying any more. You're just going to pay it maybe a little longer, maybe not, maybe shorter. New road will be constructed and 10 will be widened. That will happen. Economic impact from the construction dollars spent in Greenwood will be realized. Potential for significant economic growth will be realized as well. Traffic congestion will be eased somewhat, I don't know to what extent. Safety concerns for an alternate route through Greenwood will be addressed because you will have that alternate route in case there's an issue with a bridge or an accident or whatever. So.
We could have saved you a lot of time and showed you 2 slides, right?
That's it. Oh, all this occurs with no, don't do that. Away, I did that 10 times last time. No additional tax, but merely repurposing and extending an existing tax. And that's suspect, but it's going to be an extension. See, most of you didn't know that the bond would have retired 10 years earlier anyway because of the fact that you had 6 over. Lessens the burden on the citizens. You get something that you wouldn't otherwise have. So I hope I explained it enough to get out and vote.
Ta-da. I taught him everything he knows. I know nothing about what you're talking about. I do know some, but you've done all of this, as you can tell. It's 8 o'clock. You have been so patient and very gracious with your time, coming and listening and talking to us. So if there's any more questions, we'd be glad to answer them or do the best we can, or anything that you want to discuss.
Can we publish those last 2 slides?
Pardon me?
We have given them to them.
Yes, ma'am, I think we have it. Yes.
Getting at, we've
So-
done fact sheets and we've gone back and forth with each other to make sure we weren't telling lies.
And remember that you have an opportunity to participate, if you want to participate in the campaign, if you will. Bob Purvis with the chamber is there to, because, and the reason it's the chamber, the city has to be a little bit separate with that somewhat. So, and especially raising money for it. So obviously we're here to answer phone calls and all that for sure. But Bob's the one to contact on that end.
Feel free to contact.
Anything else we can do for you? Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thank you all.
They're trying to get to the camera. Yeah, turn this thing off. We don't want to see.